For the X Factor podcast. Joining me today is Taylor Bradley, who's head of talent strategy and developer success for Turing, builders of generative AI products and solutions that transform complex data into actionable insights. Taylor is an HR executive with over a decade of experience partnering with founders and executives to drive talent strategies in fast-growing, late-stage tech companies. He has a proven ability to navigate global workforce complexities, scale cultures and infrastructures, and support blitz scaling, including IPO readiness. Taylor joins us today from Orlando, Florida. Hello, Taylor.
Charles, thank you for having me on the podcast. Excited to be here.
Yes. Well, since you were up in Orlando, I guess I'm going to have to say, pardon the cliche, we're going to make magic happen, Taylor.
That's what we're going to do.
By the way, let me just begin by saying I'm always jealous of people who have two first names. It feels like an unfair advantage.
I've come to answer to Taylor or Bradley or Tyler gets thrown in there a lot. So it's a blessing and a curse is the way I look at it.
I see. Did you go by Tyler or just people misread Taylor and they transform it into?
Never have gone by Tyler or Brad, but I get all of them.
No, it just feels like, you could always check into a hotel and instead of, you can call yourself a Bradley Taylor and you can be completely anonymous.
Yes. My favorite one was Tyler Bradford, and they just got everything wrong. But, you go with it. I would much rather be called that than other things, so it works out.
For sure. I like Tyler Bradford. I would add like either a third, Tyler Bradford the third or junior.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's like my pseudonym, I suppose.
That is excellent. It's almost like a superpower having two first names. Anyway, again, Taylor, I am going to at some point call you Tyler. I'm afraid of this. You planted this idea in my head. I'm going to really, really try to avoid doing that. Anyway, Taylor, thanks so much for taking the time. When we first spoke, you mentioned that in your previous life, you were a firefighter paramedic. I'm curious how you made this transition and how that previous work as a firefighter paramedic informs your HR work and leadership style.
It's a great question. And I went from putting out literal fires to metaphorical ones. So there's still this common thread between the two careers. Though what I really appreciated about what I've learned as a paramedic is how to effectively navigate chaos and do that in a way that has a steady hand. Mm-hmm. One of the things that you'll notice or listeners will notice about any first responder is on a scene, they are typically very calm. They're not screaming at one another. They're taking a step back to understand the situation so they can provide an effective outcome. And I have found that that's been very useful in my career in HR. The other aspect that's really important is you recognize that you really never know what's going on in someone's life. And when you're a first responder, you do get exposed to the inner workings of what's happening behind the scenes when someone goes home or throughout the rest of their day. And so it's really made me empathetic to when you experience issues in the workplace to first take a moment, pause. Maybe there's something else going on here. Instead of us having a gut reaction, let's ask the person what's going on. And that's just a great way to treat people in general. But it's also a great way to establish loyalty with team members if you're willing to be empathetic and responsive to maybe what's going on in their lives.
Taylor, on your LinkedIn page, it refers to Turing as an AI-powered talent cloud. If you would define what this means and its application to real-world HR.
Yeah, there's two primary products that we offer our clients. LLM training, where we train large language models, all the frontier models that are out there, and then custom AI engineering. What our customers really enjoy is we have a deep bench through our talent cloud that we've amassed over multiple years. And one of the areas that our engineers like when they join our talent cloud is going through a AI vetting process where they demonstrate their skills and can be objectively ranked, not necessarily on their pedigree or what school they went to, but by their ability to code. And those two things married really enable us to, as we've been doing recently, blitz scale in an effective way for our clients.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that in a moment. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's been how we really leverage our talent cloud and continue to grow that, identify who can objectively do the job at what level, and then be able to scale them up quickly for our clients.
Yeah, from conversations I've been having on this podcast and previous podcasts having to do with HR and just simply the world of work, it's clear that we're all moving into this world where we're assessing skills more than pedigree, even experience. Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting shift, and having this technology to do that is a major advance. How has the challenge of, quote unquote, aligning HR practices with business goals changed with the emergence of AI augmented work?
For me, on a personal level, it's come down to building lean AI empowered teams. And I do think that's the way of the future, particularly in the G&A function, because so much of what we do in G&A is going to be taken over by AI. Many of the tasks, not necessarily our jobs. I still am a firm believer, at least for the forward-looking decade, that human in the loop is going to be a critical part of this process, though there are many tasks that will be taken over, limiting our need to expand our headcount. On my team in particular, we actually refer to the AI model that we use to help out with many of our tasks as Alan. And Alan, we consider just as much as a team member as I am, and work with Alan every single day to help us on a variety of different tasks that we're doing. So as an HR leader, what I think executives are going to look forward or look to us for is how do we leverage AI in practical ways and in ways that can demonstrate immediate and long-term impact on the business, positive impact on the business.
Yeah. Again, I'm not sure if I saw this on the Turing site or on your LinkedIn page, and I'm sure there's a lot of crossover there, a lot of overlap. But it says that Turing, quote unquote, scales AI-centric workforces. What is an AI-centric workforce, and how does Turing support their scale? You also mentioned in your previous answer this idea of, I don't know if you put it exactly this way, of making sure that humans are out in front. We talk about human-centric. So I'm curious, when you talk about AI-centric workforce, how you balance that by also being human-centric.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'll start first with the problem that I've been hearing from executives. When I attended or had the privilege of attending the CNBC CEO Summit in Washington, D.C. earlier this year, one of the common themes that I heard routinely from the CEOs and the board members that were at this event is how do they leverage AI? They have an insatiable thirst, both from boards and investors, is they want to hear that the company's leveraging AI. But where many executive leaders feel that they've gone off course or have not gotten traction is they're starting with projects that are perhaps too large, or going in with the concept of how many jobs can I replace with AI? And I feel like that's a process that's not going to yield a lot of results. Instead, where we've partnered with organizations is first identify what task can be replaced effectively by the current AI models that are out there, demonstrate proof of concept to be able to show we can come in, we can do this, here's how we've changed your productivity, or here are the results that we're gaining, and then spread that in the organization. That's a great way for executives to start building AI-centric workforces by finding where can they apply AI effectively now and then scale it within their organization. it also touches on a really important piece for people leaders around the change management of this.
Mm-hmm.
Many in the workforce are afraid of AI. They may get a co-pilot license or they may get a ChatGPT enterprise license, but they tend to not use it. And some of that is they need to be trained effectively on how to use these tools. But other times I hear from coworkers or colleagues in the industry that they're afraid to use it because then if they use it, it'll show that they can replace their job. And so I think a really important part in that change management process on a human level is, again, start small, start with tasks, show it how it can make you a more productive employee and drive the impact that you're doing and being recognized for, and then build from there.
Yeah, no, that's a very, very delicate dance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people want to use it. And the other problem, it seems to me, or not so much seems to me, but that is coming up time and time again in these conversations, is people bring their AI to work in ways that, say, management doesn't know. It's sort of in the shadow. Shadow IT is obviously an issue. I think it's arguably an even bigger issue with AI. How do you police that? And there are some very subtle problems that I think come from that. People all of a sudden using AI and nobody knows that they're using AI in producing work products that may indicate certain skills that they don't necessarily have, and they're encroaching on people who are hired to do those things. So it causes, and again, I've seen this, I've experienced this, it causes friction. So that also is kind of a very subtle, thorny, difficult issue. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, to me, it's actually it's an original problem that we've already been experiencing with new tools and different types of software. And what I mean by that is information security teams have struggled with people bringing their own devices or adding their own software extensions to company networks since they've been around.
Right.
And now it's the same process of people are coming in and installing or leveraging new tools that could have security risk. And that's an original problem that we're going to fight for all of eternity through this process. Where I recommend for HR leaders to start is one of the most important relationships that they have in their organization is with their information security team. We should not, as HR leaders, be implementing our own AI solutions without partnering with the right expertise in the organization. Because there are AI tools out there that are not safe for proprietary information or confidential information. And that's a challenge, but it also comes through awareness. So your information security training, more often than not, I've seen organizations just push out the same templated InfoSec training every year. If your information security training does not have information on it now about AI, you need to work with that team to educate your workforce. This isn't a new problem. It's a problem old as time, but you need to be aware of the risk it posed to the business and provide an outlet for people to share their creative ideas of how they think they can leverage AI. We have a distro list that any team member in our organization can email and say, I want to use AI for this use case. Mm-hmm. I think it would be really helpful in my job. How can I do that in a safe and effective way? And more often than not, we'll work with that individual to identify what would be the beta test and what's a safe way to do that in the constraints of following InfoSec's policies and their procedures.
Interesting. It's almost like a bespoke AI. Very interesting. You know, as an HR professional, you may have particular insight into this. HR, I think it's fair to say, has been pretty slow historically to adopt technology, but AI is different, I think, because it lands on HR in a disproportionate way. It's affecting people at work in a variety of ways. Are you seeing any change in attitudes among HR as it relates to AI because it is such a pressing issue and it is something that they have to work through?
Yeah, it's something that I've noticed as a member of CNBC's Workforce Executive Council is the new members that are being granted access to this council, which is invite only by CNBC, are leaders that are having forward-thinking policies and approaches to embracing AI. And any HR executive that is not thinking through what should be their AI strategy is likely not to be replaced by AI, but replaced by a leader that's embracing AI. Mm-hmm. So I do think it's a critical part of having a sustainable long-term career. Also, to me, you mentioned at the early part of the podcast, how are we interlocking with the business goals? Productivity gains that we've demonstrated in a use case that we've shared recently are significant, potentially exponential. And if we are not embracing those, then we're having productivity loss, or we're not embracing AI at an opportunity cost of the business expanding. So this is a really critical part. And the beauty of it is it does not take advanced technical knowledge. You don't need to know how to code to embrace the impact of AI.
Excellent points. You mentioned blitzscaling, and I mentioned blitzscaling in your intro. How does Turing support blitzscaling? And in the spirit of eating your own dog food, which is a phrase I believe you used in our original conversation, which obviously, as marketers know, that is a standard thing. How have you supported Turing's rapid growth?
Blitzscaling, for those that have gone through it, is a wild adventure, but one that really...
Now, I'm sorry, so I didn't interrupt, but your growth has been remarkable. So if you could, just walk us through that a little bit. It's crazy.
Yeah. We have cohorts of new hires that could easily be multiple cohorts of new hires every week that could easily be in the hundreds. And that's a testament to the product market fit that we have for our clients. But going through that requires you to think in how do you respond to the immediate needs while making sure part of your HR team is developing processes that are going to get you from 5,000 to 10,000 in maybe less than a year. And so it is a two-staged approach that I've divided the team's tactical time up into. First, on the tactical front, is we recognized that when we have clients come on board, we may need to immediately spin up 500 to 1,000 people within a course of like 2 to 3 weeks. And that talent cloud enables us to do that. On the onboarding piece, we had an interesting issue of how do we create an onboarding program where all the technical content needed to effectively onboard these people that quickly. Because if we don't, then that comes at the opportunity cost of missed revenue, right? Sure. So to me, that's not an option. We have to figure out the solution here. And we turned to Alan, our AI tool, and what we did was take our technical or our engineering leadership, sat them down, had them record 30 or 60-minute videos of them walking through end to end what a new person coming in would do on a multimodality project, or how they would be training an LLM step by step. Ordinarily, it would take a talent development team that's not leveraging AI anywhere from 2 to 5 weeks to create asynchronous learning modules to share with those new onboarders, or the new hires coming into the organization. With Alan, we developed a prompt, natural language prompt, no coding, that could take that video and use it as the source of truth, leveraging the engineering leadership's knowledge, and immediately provide us all the content that we needed to finalize and push out an e-learning module that was very specific to the task that person was going to do. And any L&D person listening, the way that we designed the prompt was using best practices with adult learning. So without me even once having to say to a leader, what's ADDIE and those types of things, it was all baked into the prompt. It took the expertise of the leader and instantaneously gave us the information we needed to create these courses in a matter of time that would allow us to onboard 400 or 500 people on a Monday when we started developing this course on a Friday afternoon. So we went from 2 to 5 weeks of production time per module for technical onboarding to 3 to 6 hours leveraging AI. That's enable us to support the blitzscaling that we're going through.
That's just amazing. Taylor, I know it's risky to ask anybody to hazard a prediction in a market and with technology that's advancing so rapidly, which of course means I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to ask you to predict. Where do you see AI entering in a year's time? What do you see as the major opportunities and challenges going forward? Big question, I know.
There's two things that come to mind. The first is one of the major constraints on AI's ability to grow and to be more effective actually comes down to human capital or human knowledge. What we're doing with these LLM models, and you can see this at any release of a new version of ChatGPT or Claude, is that they're getting smarter. But the only way to do that is through SFT, RLHF, humans in the loop, looking at responses and training the models on how to more effectively do that. One of the areas that I can briefly go over, but that's really exciting to me, is we have a whole team of mathematicians and PhDs in advanced mathematics from around the globe that are not coding, but using their expertise today in our tools, actively training a variety of frontier models out there on how to effectively answer mathematics statistics questions at a PhD level. In some of these areas, these models are not that accurate at the moment, or they may only have a bachelor's degree or undergraduate degree understanding of statistics. And that's something that's incredibly exciting of where I think we're going. Now, a year from now, where will AI be? Agentic workflows, or the ability to mimic types of tasks that will feel like a job that they're mimicking, but it is going to be a certain amount of tasks, I think are the next frontier of how AI is going to impact us. And this is where we work on the custom engineering side with organizations to say, what particular set of tasks could we develop AI to help support, but in a way where it's utilizing through RAG or other different types of methods, all of your internal knowledge that you have in your organization while still keeping that confidential to effectively respond to your customers or to your employees, or provide a really effective AI co-pilot for your marketing team that's been fine-tuned to support marketing initiatives. So those are the exciting things that I see coming down the pike. And then, of course, on Turing itself, I'm incredibly bullish on our continued growth over the next several years.
Yeah. To this issue of agentic AI, I've read quite a few pieces about onboarding these agents as though they are going to be actual people, in a sense, sitting the cubicle adjacent to you. What are your thoughts on that? It seems like we're entering a very, very strange hybrid new world. And when we talk about onboarding these agents, what exactly are we talking about? And are there any challenges vis-a-vis company culture when all of a sudden you're bringing on a whole new cohort of essentially robots?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one that we are actually working on my team with Alan today. And I'll give an example. We're actively training Alan right now to help us as a chatbot, right, to respond to our new hires and answer effectively all of their onboarding questions and answer the technical questions that they may have that are on the job. The aim here is to provide them an instantaneous response. Our global footprint is huge. The sun never sets on the developers that we support with Turing. And my team may not always be awake when someone has a question. And so again, it's a question of opportunity cost. Do I have a method where, yes, there's some self-service resources, that they can go explore. But if their question isn't answered, do I want a developer waiting 4 hours or 2 hours or even 30 minutes for a response? No, I want them coding. I want them doing their job. And so Alan, who would always be awake, can likely respond to them in an effective way. However, this takes human in the loop training to oversimplify it. And this is where my team, we're actively becoming involved in LLM training with our own tools, is we're looking and working with Alan to see how they respond to things and doing some fine tuning work on the back end to say, that was an okay response, but here's how we would prefer you to say it, or we'd prefer you to share this 5-second short clip with the person so that they can see exactly how to submit their PTO quickly. And that's what I'm really excited about, because at the end of the day, we are going to always offer human connection, where Alan will prompt the individual to say, it feels like I'm not answering your question. How about I connect you with a member of our developer success team? So that human in the loop option will always exist. But at the end of the day, I do believe that our developers, to garden variety questions, what they value most is their time and just getting an instantaneous answer rather than having to go spend time searching for it or waiting for someone to come online.
How would you feel about an agent version of Taylor Bradley?
That would likely happen one day, not necessarily myself, but my role, because when we look at any of our roles, it's a collection of tasks, right? So I do think that there'll come a time where a good chunk of my task could be replicated by AI. I don't think that's going to be in the immediate near future, because if we're taking most of my role, then it's AI is replacing jobs, and I still think we are a ways off from that. But I have Alan help me as a co-pilot every day, and to me, it's materially increased my productivity. So I'm fully embracing this co-pilot mentality because it enables me to delegate all of the low-level admin type work that I would ordinarily get bogged down doing to Alan to help me with. And then I can spend more time connecting with our human leaders and our team members, which is something that I think any HR person would love to do more of.
Yeah, for sure. Last thing, I'm going to give you an opportunity to end with either a cautionary note or a rousing, inspirational mini speech. Entirely up to you, Taylor.
Yeah. For me, it'll go back to how we started the conversation when I was a paramedic. We had this process called the medics method, where you assess a situation, determine what the needs are, and then provide an outcome. And when it comes to AI, it feels complicated, but it's all natural language processing. The hottest coding language on the planet right now is English. So there are many opportunities for you to assess, what does your team need help on? Identify what those tasks are, identify what the needs would be, determine the needs, and then work with AI. You can easily pull up ChatGPT and work with your InfoSec team so you're not sharing confidential information, but tell it, talk to it as you would a human to say, I have this situation. These are the needs that I think I could leverage AI. How can I leverage AI? What would you recommend? And it will likely respond to you with how it can help you in that role. And then continue on the conversation. And then that will enable you to determine how can you start to provide a better outcome to the business. The end goal, if you go into it on how do I replace jobs, I don't think you're going to be successful. Instead, if you tee it up of how can I free up tasks for my team so that they can focus on these other higher priority, more strategic value items, then I think your team will be successful in that approach. So just assess what the needs are, determine what you need to get in place, and then provide the outcome through AI. To me, it's very simple. You can do it today, and you're always welcome to reach out to me if you'd like some guidance on that.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Taylor, really appreciate it. Actually, one other question just occurs to me.
Yeah.
How could AI have helped you in your previous work as a paramedic?
Yeah, that's a really tantalizing debate. I do not think AI is going to replace clinicians in any near future. But for me, one of the most interesting use cases that I'm seeing some organizations pursue is a co-pilot for clinicians. And when I'm in the back of an ambulance, the listeners, I think what's important to recognize is paramedics are trained on a very specific set of skills. It's the pre-hospital care of a patient. We get all sorts of information about advanced medical histories that we may not even fully understand because that's not what we're trained on. But if a co-pilot is in the background listening and telling me, the first responder, this is what that 15-syllable symptom is or illness is, and here's how it could affect your initial care of this patient. You can't give this. Those are going to be really important advice or co-pilot type tasks that will hopefully mitigate human error, because most negative outcomes pre-hospital are in a way tied to human error or not acting fast enough. And so if there's anything that can be given to us as a clinician, or I'm not a clinician anymore, but given to clinicians to help them do their job more effectively, give them more insight into areas that they may not be aware of, because we're humans, we can only know so much. It's only a positive or net gain. But the important part is there's still a human in a loop. You have to have an effective paramedic to say, okay, co-pilot, I hear your advice, but I'm going to do this.
Very, very interesting. Thanks, Taylor, for that. And thanks for spending this time. This is a fascinating conversation on an endlessly fascinating topic, and the work you're doing at Turing is quite amazing. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Charles. Happy to be here.
Today, I spoke with Taylor Bradley, Head of Talent Strategy and Developer Success for Turing, builders of generative AI products and solutions that transform complex data into actionable insights. This is Charles Epstein for the X Factor podcast. Thanks for listening.